Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander, and as always, I am honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Ooh, I just realized I put myself in front of the title. Today, we're going to be talking about boundaries by design, crafting your work-life harmony. Now, as we go through, I just want to say, give y'all kind of the lay of the land. We'll go over a couple quick housekeeping items. This is going to be especially useful if today is your first event with Power to Fly. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers, okay? I love seeing your familiar names and faces and avatars in the chat and in the video panel and everything. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Now, real quick, in case anybody wants a visual descriptor, like I said, my name is Meg. I am a 37-year-old white woman. I have pink and purple hair up in a messy bun, blue glasses, and I'm wearing a pink shirt and black overalls. Now, if you want to participate, we absolutely encourage this. If you want, you can participate by turning your cameras on. You're welcome to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Now, there is no pressure to be Instagram perfect, y'all. Just because I got all fancy and put in even more dry shampoo instead of washing my hair today does not mean that you cannot come to us with your bathrobes, your messy buns from your kitchen table. You do not have to be in a three-piece suit or coming to us from a corner office, y'all. We just want to meet you where you are today. Now, you don't have to participate with your camera if you don't want to. You can always chime in the group chat. In fact, I would love to see y'all getting up and in there. So if you would like to, please feel free to let us know where you're joining from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. If you would like to share where you're joining from, I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. And if you know whose land you're on, you're also welcome to share that. Now, we are recording today's event, and what that means for you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Jen and Jenny from Netskope, and you don't have to worry if you missed a resource that someone lists or a reference. You can always go back to check out this recording after today's event is over. So the way you're going to do that is in about 4 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to send everybody that registered an email. And that's going to contain a link to where you can watch this recording when we post it on powertofly.com. Now, obviously, I'm really looking forward to today's event, but let's say that Jen or Jenny says something today so like mind-blowing, paradigm shifting. You cannot wait 4 to 5 business days to share this with a coworker or a friend or relative. Good news, you don't have to. You can always head over to our YouTube channel. Ria is sharing links for all of this in the chat thread as we go. Thank you, Ria. So if you would like, you can always check us out on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. The recording is posted there usually by the end of today. And there is a section, there's kind of a greatest hits track of some of our best and most favorite chat and learns are stored there. But truly, y'all, the real, like the mother load, all of the kind of like bunch of our like all of our archives, they're on our website. So every event that's happened from the beginning of Lunch and Learns with Lauren Haggerty all the way through today. So I really, obviously the YouTube page is awesome. It's very accessible. But I also really recommend you check out our website. Like I said, that is where all of our resources are. They're free to all of you. And it's something that we want to encourage is to get them in the hands of as many people as possible. So if that's also important to you, like I think it probably is if you're showing up to today's event, make sure that if you'd like, you're welcome to take photos or video as we go, share it out to your social networks, and let people know that you are learning with Power to Fly today. Our preferred hashtags are hashtag Power to Fly. I think we might have had another one, but we'll go with hashtag Power to Fly for now. If you post anything, we would love to reshare, retweet, or repost whatever it is y'all want to send out to your social networks. Now, the other thing that I want to encourage y'all to do, like I said, is write in that chat. So if you have questions today, if you want to make sure that we go over them, ask them in the chat. Just make sure that as we are operating in the chat, we are referring to a little bit of the rules, codes of conduct here. Just it's a bunch of boilerplate legal, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk. Okay. As you are interacting and connecting with people, just make sure that as always, we are leading from a place of kindness and respect. Now, I'm very excited to introduce our speakers, but the last thing I'm going to do before we do that is tell you a little bit about Netskope. Both Jen and Jenny are here today with us repping Netskope. Now, since 2012, Netskope has built the market-leading cloud security company and an award-winning culture that's powered by hundreds of employees. They are spread across offices around the world. That includes Santa Clara, St. Louis, Bangalore, London, Melbourne, and Tokyo. Sorry, Melbourne. Horrible, hideous American that can't pronounce things. Now, Netskope's core values are openness, honesty, and transparency, and they purposely developed their open desk layouts as well as large meeting spaces to support and promote partnerships, collaboration, and teamwork. Now, that's not the end of what you'll be hearing about Netskope from us, but kind of gives you a brief introduction to this company and how how they could fit into your future career plans. Now, I'm very, very, very excited to introduce our speakers. So let me pull myself off of the slide here. There we go. Now, first up, joining us, we have Jen Jacobowitz. I just realized I never asked you if that's how you pronounce your name. So Jen, please feel free to correct me.
In Polish, it's Jakubowicz, and in the States, we say Jakubowicz. So most people call me JJ because it is a tongue twister.
That makes sense, yes. Now, Jen is the Senior Director of Global Channel and Alliances Marketing. She is the team that, as you can see here, gets shit done. Now, she leads from the front as she builds out rockstar teams and go-to-market strategies from the ground up. Jen, what else would you like our audience to know about you today?
So I'm based out of the Philadelphia area. So if anyone's familiar with Pennsylvania, I'm about an hour and a half away in the farm town of Lancaster. I have been with Netskope for just a little over 5 months, so I'm still what I would call a newbie. So I'm happy to share everything that I've learned about Netskope so far, but I still have a lot of learning to do. In addition to that, I am a gamer. So I learned very long ago when I was trying to connect with my kids and find some cool things to do. I am definitely mom the noob when it comes to everything Fortnite, but that's what we like to do Friday night Fortnite with my kids and my husband, and we have a good time.
That is so cool. And I absolutely love that it's like, so I feel like a lot of the times, like when you're trying to connect with your kids, not everybody is willing to like kind of dive into the thing that they like, especially when it's something like Fortnite, which could seem really kind of like over our heads to a certain extent. As someone who is also very late in life learning video games so I can play with my husband, I absolutely love that journey for you. And that's got to be so fun and great memories for your kids.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, now joining Jen on stage, we have Jenny Mandeville. Now, Jenny is a senior marketing project manager. She's the portfolio project manager for Netskope's marketing department, where she keeps the trains running on time while also consulting with teams on best practices around their processes and becoming more strategically efficient. Jenny, what would you like our audience to know about you today?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I am based in the Nashville area, so that's where I spend my time. I've been with Netskope for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years. I started in February, I think. So yeah, a little over. And when I am not sitting in front of screens, a lot of my hobbies take me away from screens. So one of the things I've been really into lately is quilting and learning how to do that, which has been a much more involved process than I thought it would be. But I'm having so much fun getting to make things from scratch and have like tangible things that I can touch at the end of the day, which can be really fun when you do a lot of digital work otherwise.
Oh yeah. I mean, isn't that so like so satisfying? There's absolutely like there's a different kind of satisfaction that you get from actually making things with your hands as opposed to like pushing buttons. It's absolutely fascinating, and I am a huge proponent of having like something small to do. Like I do embroidery. What kind of quilting did you do? What did you start with?
So it's all kind of patchwork stuff. So kind of the cutting and the piecing and everything like that. I really want to get into paper piecing and some of the more intricate stuff, but like I'm a little scared of I'm like, oh, the perfectionist in me is like, but what if I'm not immediately good at it? Then, what will I do?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I started with foundation paper piecing, so FPP. I will tell you right now, if you see anything that's labeled as EPP, run screaming because EPP, English paper piecing, is where like you have to fussy cut to get your patterns to match. So it's really intense. And most of them are sewn by hand, which to me is like I'm in awe of people that like carve their own wool, but also like I don't need that gold star on my lifetime, like Girl Scout sash.
Yeah,
I
good sewing machine. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Honestly, I love EPP or FPP. I mean, there's far less measuring and math, so you might honestly like it. I
Okay.
started with a tattoo quilt. It's all like shockingly, it's all like tattoo imagery and stuff. So like truly, I absolutely recommend you check out FPP. I
Okay.
think you might
I
really like it.
absolutely will. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah. All right, now I'm going to bring both of my fabulous guests up on stage here so we can start diving into questions. But in case anybody is new to the Power to Fly Chat and Learn, setup, we're going to be going over a lot of the questions that you all asked at registration. Now, if you are here and you took time out of your day to be here with us live, we want to reward you for that. So if we are going over your question and maybe we're not taking it from the right angle, or maybe there's some details or context we should know, send in that stuff in the chat. If we're going over anything today and you're like, hey, can we dive in deeper on this subject, or I don't really understand that acronym or whatever, ask it in the chat, y'all. This is, I want to make sure that your time spent today with Power to Fly and Netskope is worth it. So please, please, please feel free to ask. Ask early, ask often. That is going to be the best way to make sure that we have a chance of getting your questions answered today. So as we dive in here, let's start with kind of some baseline setting, or like, kind of some level setting for people. When you are in the workplace and trying to either establish or maintain your boundaries, saying no when you're asked to do something can feel just very, very wrong, I think, to a lot of us. How can people manage to say no to work requests or commitments without feeling guilty or feeling like they're compromising relationships? Because we want to be true to ourselves. You have to take care of yourself to make sure you can still keep doing your work. But I'm interested to see if there's any tips that y'all have for this. JJ, do you want to start us?
Sure. So it's not easy, and I wish I would have learned this so much early in my career. And yes, I have a Zoom filter all the way up, so I have over 20 years of experience doing this. Especially if you're a people pleaser. So I'm definitely a people pleaser when it comes to my work. I'm always trying to ensure that everyone has what they need and that we're all charting towards the same goal. And we're trying to help, in my case, help our sales team really hit their quota so that we're providing the right tools. It took me a lot of years and some really good mentors who I'd like to call champions to really help me understand two key words. Yes, but. So if you're asking to get an additional commitment and it's high priority and you know that you've got like 10 other things that you have to get done, it's that conversation of, yes, happy to prioritize this, but what can you help me move from the rest of the list that we have here? So I think those are very, very powerful words, but I also believe in the power of no as well. So and I wasn't really comfortable until about 4 years ago, really pushing back with no. And it really took me kind of working, getting out of a kind of toxic environment where I became a catch-all to realize when I was there that I needed to learn how to say no. So for all of you that are on here, if you struggle saying no, just practice it in the mirror. It's okay, because at the end of the day, pushing back, you're setting boundaries for yourself to help you support the organization with the time that you have available. And I don't want to digress here too much, but I will say for me personally, I believe everyone should be working to live. So work should really be funding our passions. It should help us with our hobbies and what we want to do. And we shouldn't be living to work, in my opinion. So that's why definitely look at no. And the best advice I've ever heard in my life, Bob Knapp. I know you're not on here, but if you ever do hear this, he passed this along to me about 6, 7 years ago, and he said, "Your tombstone is not going to say loved by X company." So always keep that in mind. So the more you say yes, the more things will pile up on your plate, and the more you're going to be chained to your desk. So great advice that I received that I just want to share with the rest of the team here.
I love that so incredibly much. Like it truly, I can't add anything that's going to make it any better. Jenny, do you want to weigh in here? How do you feel about saying no? What has it done for you, or how do you practice this in your career?
Yeah, so I will co-sign everything Jen said. I had a mentor give me the yes but advice in my career, and it made a huge difference. And that same mentor actually also gave me the no but advice in terms of responding to people when you are saying no. She's basically said it's never a hard no, end of conversation. She said give them the no, but here's what we are doing to move this initiative forward, even if we're not doing the thing that you specifically want to do. Or no, it's not in the timeline right now, but it might be in let's I can work with you to get it fit in 6 months from now. That it's kind of the you're still saying no, you're still setting the boundary, but it's the soft no of you're helping them understand the no, because I think that a lot of times what people want is context when they're told no. They want to understand that why their thing is not maybe the priority thing, because at the end of the day, we all want our thing to be the priority thing. So being able to give people the context and help them understand the wider reasoning behind the no, whether it's a business critical thing or it's your personal bandwidth thing, can go a long way to kind of smoothing those relationships and help keep people liking you, which is really good if you're a people pleaser, which Jen said she was. I definitely am too. I want everyone to like me, but I also don't want to get taken advantage of. So it's balancing those two.
And I think that's the fine line, right? That's the line that we're all trying to walk is you want to be a team player. You don't want to be seen as negative or somebody that like doesn't do your share. Especially as women, like we do get defaulted a lot. There's a lot of unseen labor that gets turfed to women in a lot of ways. So I think it is really important, like you said, maintain those boundaries because that's how you perform best. It's also super worth noting, y'all, when you say no to somebody, watch how they respond. Because when you say no to someone, if their response is like, that's something interesting to note and take note of. But if you are saying no and you're giving this person context and they're still like that's going to tell you a lot, right? Like that's going to tell you maybe not necessarily how to collaborate with this person, but like, okay, that response, like this relationship needs a little bit of work, or there needs to be maybe some more like assertion of boundaries. I think this is really good. And I love that it's like a no, but I love the context. I think that's excellent. Okay, let's keep moving. All right, person wants to know if you have any tips for setting boundaries when you are working remotely or in a flexible environment where traditional office hours may not apply. As a still recovering people pleaser, I was, first couple of weeks or months, I should say, with Power to Fly, I did this a lot, right? Because you're working from home. This was all pre-pandemic. And, you kind of feel like you're sort of on all the time because you never actually leave the office. Have y'all had to deal with this in your experience? JJ, do you want to start us?
Sure. Yes, I have. And I will say that I used to call, and I actually got it from my children, my office, my jail cell. And it wasn't until that I actually put the boundaries in place that I was in a better, more healthier position. So in the global role that I have now, I do have team members that are from Australia to the UK to Spain, etc. So they can be based anywhere in the world. So what I do now is I kind of flex my days. So on Thursdays, I have my APAC sessions and I meet with Karen on my team and we have our conversations. And then I tend to get up earlier. So that's 100% on me, but that helps me as well for other days, especially like Mondays and Tuesdays when I'm trying to connect with my EMEA team members. Yep.
I
So
think
I
that's
kind of flex it to make it work with the role, but definitely if you struggle and you find yourself getting an email, the other thing that I do is I try to hide my phone. So when I walk out of my office, I shut my door, I hide my phone, and then that's the time for me to be present with my family.
I like that. That's good advice.
It's really hard for
Jen,
people though. We're so connected to our phones.
well, It really is. Yeah. I mean, like I struggle with it too. I listen to podcasts a lot. And so like I ended up not investing, like it's headphones, they're not a car. But I ended up getting like Beats headphones that have like little, like I can control the volume, I can control like the song I'm listening to, or like, skip ahead or whatever. But that way I touch my phone as little as possible so that I can, keep doing my stuff. But I absolutely love, like you said, like you want to maximize that actual like time with your family or even just time for yourself. Jenny, have you had issues with this, or what do you do to try and make sure that you are respecting those boundaries for yourself and not continuously working or working outside of when you are supposed to be?
I think it's a self-discipline thing. Nobody's going to come to your house and shut your laptop or take your phone away from you. And so I think some of it has to be you are going to close your laptop at 5 o'clock, or like Jen said, maybe you have a flex day where you have a late call or an early call, but when it is closed, you don't open it up again. You don't check your email on your phone, to the point of investigate the services that your company uses and find out if they have quiet hours. Find out if there's a way to stop the notifications on your phone from popping up. Like I have it set so that, I'm not perfect, but like after 5, my Slack does not notify me on my phone, and my work email does not ping me on my phone. And so it is now, obviously there are going to be times in the year where like it's a little wild, and maybe there's a couple weeks where you need to, flex those hours. And I think that's just the nature of like any position. But I had to build in those boundaries, like those little stop gaps for myself that are literally like, no, I'm just not going to look. And if I do look, then I have to, which, we're all a little bit guilty of it. But if I see that email come in at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night from a colleague, I have had to say out loud to myself, like, you're going to wait until Monday morning to answer that email. And the fact that they sent that to you at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night says more about them than it does about you. And like, put the
Right.
phone down and walk away. So yeah, there's so few, at the end of the day, we're not, if you work in the emergency room, you're saving lives. For most of us, there's not a lot that can't wait until Monday morning, unless you're in crisis communications, in which case, like, God bless you. You're doing amazing work, because it couldn't be me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that is you're right. There's definitely certain cases where this like maybe the boundaries need to be rethought, but yeah, I think you're right. It is very important, and you're not the only person that's had to have that conversation with themselves. I want to know from y'all in the chat here. Let us know if there's anything that you have done that's really helped you to kind of stay and hold to your time boundaries about when you're going to be working or not. I know that I used to, before I kind of fell out of the habit for mental health issues, I used to schedule like a workout class or something like right at the end of my day. So that way, like I already paid for the class and I registered. So like I have to go. And it made me like actually respect my own timelines. That was a really big one. And when I first started working remotely, I built in a fake commute. So the time that I usually would have spent in the car, like driving to an office job, which is usually about 20 to 30 minutes in my area, I would go for a walk around the neighborhood, or I would take my cup of coffee and go sit in the backyard. And that's what I did to kind of like give myself both a commute at the start of the day and then a commute at the end of the day to like help my brain kind of shift into, okay, we're not in work mode anymore. So yeah, y'all chime in the chat here if there's anything that's really worked for you. I'd love to learn from everyone. Oh, Kristen has a really good question. She goes, how do you deal with executives who always seem to have fire drills with little to no notice? This is a really good question. So, if you are in a situation, where it's a bit of an all hands on deck situation, that's okay. But what if you have a supervisor or, some sort of leader that maybe makes this more than a rare occurrence? Have either of you seen this, or how would you deal with this if this is something you were experiencing?
Do you want to take that first, Jenny, or you want me to chime in?
So I can jump in on this one, and I will say that in the most diplomatic sense, sometimes that is the opportunity to evaluate your own boundaries and work-life balance, and if you're happy in your role, because typically it's harder to get someone at that level to change their behavior than it is to decide if it's the right role for you. And I went through a period a few years ago before I came to Netskope. Luckily, this has not been an issue for me here, where I had to make the difficult choice to leave a position that I genuinely enjoyed because the culture at the top had changed to the point where it was just this constant stream of fire drills, and there was always kind of lip service paid to, oh no, we're this is the last one, we're going to stop, we're never going to do this again, we've definitely fixed the problem. And it just got to the point where it was just like, okay, I have to take care of me. And I'm really lucky that I landed where I landed, but I do think that there's definitely things you can try, but unless the pressure's coming from the top for that executive to change their behavior, and if they are getting the results with what they're doing, it can be really hard to be the person pushing up to try and get them to do things differently. I realize that's a little bit of a depressing answer, but it's
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's why we have these chats, right? It's not because every question is going to result in, a sunshine and puppies and rainbows kind of answer. It's because, like, there are certain situations, like you said, you have to make a hard call. And there's also been, I mean, for personally, there's been plenty of times where I needed to make that call, but was not in a resourced enough position to be able to do so. And then it, like, my outside of work hours slowly became so much about recovering from the day that it was like by the time I'm actually ready to go to sleep at night, that's about the time where I finally kind of gotten my head out of work mode. And it was just horrible. But I also understand there's plenty of us who are not able to do that or leave right now. But yeah, I mean, it is important things to learn and realize, like, okay, this is not really what I want in my next role. Jen, how about you? You want to chime in here?
I kind of take a different approach to that. So you're always going to have those executives that are like, we need these slides for this board meeting, or we need this right now and urgently, or sales team. Well, if I had a flyer, I could sell it. It's always goes back to that good old flyer. But I'm more of the person that kind of looks at your fire drill isn't necessarily my fire drill. And like things are going to happen. 100% things are going to happen. And I actually work with someone who gave me really good advice for some fire drills where they said, listen, it's going to happen. So it's an opportunity for you to work with that person who's bringing you that fire drill to sit them down and help them understand how this is impacting not only you, but your team or the different projects and priorities that you have in place. And how can you make a path forward from this? How can you take this as an opportunity for you to understand my position of where I'm going through, of what I'm working on, and how can we work together to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because then if it does become a regular occurrence, that's when you need to go, unless the executive is your boss, but this is when you would go to your leader and really talk about the situation and how that's impacting the work that you're working on, that the organization has brought you into in order to successfully do. So I do know, and I can't speak for myself personally, but I do know someone who has put little reminders in an executive's calendar for, hey, this activity is coming up. You're going to want to request this from me. So this is a nice reminder for you. And I walked away with that advice from her, and I'm definitely going to be using that moving forward as well.
I really love that.
Yeah, and to be 100% clear, I completely agree with Jen about going to your leader and helping them, get them to help manage that relationship. I was definitely talking more about when they are in your direct line and are controlling your day-to-day happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate y'all taking it from two different angles, because there are certain situations where it's going to call for one or the other, or some untold third option at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense. And it also kind of underscores this idea that, like, you teach people how to treat you, right? And so if you are trying to maintain these boundaries or assert these boundaries, it is really, really helpful to tell the person what's going on, right? Like we talked about earlier, give them that context, because so often we're so siloed in our roles, or we're so focused on what we need to get done, that it is very easy to either forget kind of the impact that you have on other people, or just not even really know, because that impact might be being felt outside your department or outside your purview. So I mean, I think that is something really important to remember, right? Is that not my entire view of work and competition changed when I realized or heard the phrase, people are not anti-you, they are pro themselves. So most times people are not planning on, like, aha, I'm going to really stick it to Jen today. She's going to have to collate like hundreds of documents and in it's going to be so amazing, right? Most of the time, that's not the thing that's happening. They're just like, oh, I'll just hit send on this one because I'm sure she can print it. It'll be great. Like she sits right by the printer, it'll be fine. So I do think it is important to, to remember that probably it's not coming from a place of like, I'm gonna stick it to you, but that doesn't mean you can't give that explanation of like, hey, here's how this is actually impacting. Are you aware? I also love that reminder that like, because that's something that's like, right, it's like a pretty easy calendar reminder to like set up for yourself. That's like, I'm making my job easier right now by making your job easier. I think that's like just the sickest Uno reverse ever. I love that. Love that. Now, before we leave this area, Jen, I did want to go back and ask you something that you had talked about early on about trying to maintain or, assess boundaries that might be needed because you were in a bit of a toxic environment. As you were in that, obviously this might, you might not have experience in the area, but were you able to assert and start to like kind of practice that boundary setting in that old position, or was this something that I'm thinking of people who have been in a role that they need to assert boundaries? Were you able to do that in that past role before you realized like, hey, I this is what ultimately I need to move to a new setting?
So unfortunately, no. So I wasn't able to really articulate it during my time there. If I'm being 100% honest, we were very similar to what we are here. We were a small and mighty team, but the problem was I became the catch-all for everything. So operations, it became if you didn't know how to do it, go ask JJ. JJ will get it done. And again, I'm back in that people pleasing mode. And then you start saying yes, and then your list just keeps getting longer and longer. And I am one of those leaders that I've had people leaders before where they're just delegate everything to their team. It doesn't matter what their bandwidth looks like. And I'm even concerned for some members of my team. I'm constantly, if I see them on at certain times, I'm like, hey, get off. This is your time. I'm constantly reinforcing what I'm trying to do for myself. And I'll be 100% on it. It's a juggling act. Like it's roller coasters. It has its up and downs. You just have to, I always say, you're the CEO of your calendar. You have to take control of your calendar. You have to like make sure, like Microsoft did this great study. Again, digressing here, but Microsoft did this fantastic study where it was they assessed brain activity when someone was on video calls, call after call after call. And if you're doing them for that for like 8, 10, or even 12 hours a day, it just was so sad to see how the effects that it had on your performance. But if you were to take 15-minute breaks in between each one, so I do things with my team in terms of, and again, this is all from my lessons learned. So hopefully people can walk away and take some tidbits with them. But instead of having an hour meeting, make it 45 minutes and then put that 15 minutes in there. Give yourself time to walk away. Like give yourself time to like grab that snack, that drink, cuddle with your dog for 5 minutes, which has great effects on your emotional well-being.
Oh yes, yes. Can't control.
And
Like there's a bulldog snoring right under here. That it's excellent.
but I also do this thing, and it's called go done sessions. So I will schedule just regular time in my calendar because I'm on back-to-back meetings. Full transparency, we're down one member of the team, so I'm trying to plug different gaps there, but I've gotten great support across the organization with a lot of things that we're working on. But if you put these sessions on your calendar, it gives you a regular block to go get stuff done. So that way you're not constantly in back-to-back, because we've all been there. We walk away from a meeting and you've got like 100 different action items that you've got to work on, but now you're going to the next meeting that's going to give you even more action items. So it's, again, going back to trying to figure out how to be the CEO of your calendar, not trying to figure out being the CEO of your calendar, and blocking times and putting personal things in there. And I believe I was on one of these Power to Fly sessions as well, where a CEO came on and she's like, I block my calendar from 5:30 to 8:30 at night. That's my time with my kids. And I'm like, I've been debating about putting that on my calendar, because I'm like, that's actually a fantastic idea, because you're not just setting your boundaries, you're expressing your boundaries to the rest of the organization. And it's for them to respect it, your time, for the value that you bring to them.
When you're setting an example, right? Especially if you are a leader of a team or if you have any sort of seniority at all, even if you're leading without authority, which is, a very common thing, like showing that and demonstrating what that looks like and that you are setting boundaries and maintaining them, that is hugely influential, like absolutely massive. I remember when I first started going freelance, I was having a major mental health crisis and I was in therapy. And then I also had visits to my psychiatrist so we could get meds squared away, right? And that's a lot to handle. And I remember putting those things on my calendar because I was freelance. So I wanted to try and get as many hours as I could, but I would put those on my calendar and it would say like therapy or psychiatrist visit or whatever. And I cannot tell you the amount of people that either started doing it and told me that they started doing it because they saw me doing it, or even just conversations that it opened up with people that are like, so how did you get a therapist? How does this work? Like, I'm feeling a little bit sad. Does that sound familiar? And blah blah blah. So like it doesn't only impact yourself, right? It impacts the other people around you and it starts conversations where maybe there hadn't been about what is required truly for us to support ourselves and be, kind of make yourself a full person so that you can do your job effectively. I think that's wonderful. Jenny, do you want to chime in?
I mean, cosign. I do that with my calendar all the time. I have like blocks of time that are like, I think mine are the GSD, so get shit done time. Like it's the same principle, and I'm pretty protective over them. Like if someone schedules a meeting over them, I'm like, okay, I will move it to another part of the day because I'm not losing my time to do that. And I think the other thing I've done too, like Jen, to your point about go cuddle your dog, take 15 minutes. I will put on 15 minutes and be like, walk away from the computer time to literally go do exactly that.
Yeah. Oh, it's hugely helpful. Even if you're not having like a stressful, like the day is going on, you know what I mean? Like it is even you don't have to be having a horrific day to be able to or to think like I probably need to take like 3 minutes and go, pet my cat in a sunbeam and that will be lovely. I think that is important. I do want to tell y'all we have about 20 minutes left in today's event. So if you have questions, please, please, please feel free to ask them in the chat. Kristen, I appreciate you chiming in there. I'm glad we're able to address your question. So please feel free, y'all, let us know what you want to know so I can make sure that you get value from today's event. All right, so we wanted to also talk about, a lot of setting boundaries is about communication and trying to be effective with that. We had a lot of people that wanted to know about how they could kind of maximize their professional relationships and really empower them. Jenny, do you want to start us off with what you think people should do in this situation?
Is that in terms of just generally or virtually or
It looks like generally. So if this was your question and you have, context or you want to know specifics, please weigh in the chat. But let's kind of tackle it from a general perspective. Whether you're remote or not, how do you make sure that you are building and maintaining professional relationships?
so I think that the way that I've always approached it in my career has been I never go in assuming or wanting anything out of someone. I always try to approach it as I'm trying to connect with this person as a person, whether, they're my CEO or they're someone that, I just met at an event or whatever else it is. Try, and that I realize that sounds cynical to be like, I want to connect with you as a person, but it truly is like, I try never to go in thinking like, how can this relationship benefit me, but more just, is this a relationship that I want to have? And then I think once you make that connection with someone, whether it's at an event or just, through Zoom calls, you realize that this is a person you might want to get to know better. I'm very proactive about reaching out and kind of, and I think this is relevant if you're working virtually or working globally. I'll say something like, hey, let's throw a one-on-one in the calendar and like, let's just like shoot the breeze for a while and not talk about work and get to know each other a little better. And I have built some really amazing friendships that way with people around the world. And a lot of those have translated into like, we have consistent one-on-ones and it's not even like mentorship, it's just relationship building. And but I think the biggest takeaway is for the most part, people aren't going to reach out to you to do it. You have to be the one who's proactive about getting time on their calendar and talking with them about stuff and opening up a Slack channel and telling them about your new dog or whatever else it is so that you've got both going on at the same time. And then the occasions to make it professional kind of arise naturally from those relationships, because those people have always they will think of you because you're the person that they trust and they have a great friendship with anyway. That's typically the way I do it.
I think that's really, really excellent advice. Jen, do you feel the same way? Is there anything different that you do to nurture or start professional relationships?
So I'm going to take it a little different view, if that's okay from this. So if I'm looking at like working with your manager, so like for my team, I'm constantly asking them like, and trying to understand where do they want to go and develop in their career? Like, what are certain projects or little tiger teams that I can put them on to get the experience to help them really nurture their journey and their path. So what I would say from a manager's perspective is be transparent, be upfront. Your managers can help make introductions to those across the organization where either you're looking to learn a new skill, or you're looking to try something out because this may be something that could be an opportunity for you in the future, or you're just looking to take on more responsibilities and try new things. So I call it, and it's a play off of Netskope, but I have something called Devscope that I work on with my team, and it's really focused on what are your personal goals. So it could be anything from a personal goal, and then what are your professional goals? So because I want to nurture both your personal and professional goals, and with professional goals, I'm going to look at, are there certain things that we can invest in to help you achieve that next level of success? So that I highly recommend working with your manager, having open conversations. And then if you really feel like, wow, this person's an absolute rock star across the organization. I actually did it with one person. She's actually on the call here. I don't want to call her out in case she'll be embarrassed, but like, I'm like, could you mentor me? Like your perception on how you articulate everything and how you go to market from a sales perspective. And because I'm on the marketing side, like I would love to learn more to just kind of build my toolkit up a bit. And these are all experiences that you can take away to like that when you were alluding to an interview process where you can start to build your own portfolio to show the toolkit that you can bring to a future organization.
Yes. Ah, yes. And I really like that you called it out, right? Is that you can literally just do that. You can just be like, hey, can you mentor me? Because you do such and such really well, and I want to be able to do that as well as you do. I remember the first couple of weeks that I worked for Power to Fly, I had to handle our help desk inbox, and I got some pretty like interesting and pointed and somewhat prickly emails, which is fine. And I remember thinking, like, I want to make sure I'm representing Power to Fly well. I'm not making a mistake. And I ended up learning a ton from Catherine Zaleski, who's one of the co-founders, who has since moved on. But I learned from her how she calls it how to bear hug someone into submission. And it truly, like, it's absolutely an invaluable skill. And I was able to learn from somebody that I never would have said, hey, can you teach me how to do this? But I got to see how she did it, and then was like, hey, I even reached out. I was like, hey, privacy and all that kind of stuff, like, taken into consideration. Can you CC me or BCC me when you answer emails like this? Because I really want to learn better how you do this. How do you look at this situation that seems like no win? How do you bring that person around and really get to what they actually need, how we can help them, all that kind of stuff. And it's really invaluable. And it doesn't have to be some really like formal process, right? I feel like a lot of times people think that it has to be, but you're just making friends. You're making connections. You're learning about what other people know, and that's always a good thing. Always, always. All right, let's see here. What other questions did we get? Okay, this person wants to know what are some early signs of burnout and what can be done to better establish an improved work-life balance to prevent it. So y'all, if you are here and you have experienced burnout, I absolutely have. Give me a +1 in the chat. Let us know if you have also experienced this. It's intense for anybody that has not gone through it. But what are some signals that people can look for, especially if, they're trying to respect these boundaries, they're trying to make sure that they're doing the right thing, but it can be hard, right? It can be really hard to take time off and not feel guilty about it. Let's see. JJ, do you want to kick us off here?
Sure. It's trying to be self-aware. So sometimes you do, like the first time that I experienced it, I had no clue what was happening. You start to feel this level of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? Am I not getting the results? Like you start doubting yourself. And that's a bit hard to be able to recognize that. And then you start noticing that your self-worth, for me at least personally, started going down. So and I do, like, I don't judge my work doesn't judge my self-worth, but it does tie into it because it is a passion for me. So but really start listening to those around you. Like, as I referred, my kids used to call my office a jail cell. Like that should have been my first indicator. Wow, like I'm doing way too much, and I need to figure out how to reset, because there's always a chance to reset. It is never too late uh, to do that and to have those conversations with your boss, your manager, etc. But listen to those around you. Those around you, if you feel like you're starting to disconnect. And one of the things that I used to do is I would get done work. My kids were younger at the time, and I would just look at my husband and I'd be like, okay, fast food, that's what it is. I love cooking. I don't have a passion to cook anymore. And then I would just kind of give a high five to my kids and head right to bed to get up to do the same thing the next day. So you find yourself in this like destructive pattern. So if you start seeing those signs and start listening to those around you, just take note, take a couple days off, regroup, reset, and if you can, refocus and again, gain control of your calendar. Have that conversation with your manager. This is just too much. And because the worst thing to hear is there is no work-life balance here. And like, I don't want that for my team. Again, I go back to, we should be working to fuel our passions. Like whether you love to travel, you love to cook, you love to be with your family and take these amazing trips, whatever, quilting, whatever you want to do, that should be what you should be focused on. So just look for clues from your family and really start active listening to what they're saying. Because it's easy for someone to say, hey, I think you're working a little too much. Ah, yeah, it's fine, whatever. I got this project, blah, 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 and keep charging forward. Start actively listening. So when you hear things like that, that should be a red flag for you to be like, let me reevaluate myself and start to really gain that self-awareness so that you can start realizing before others are telling you that, hey, I'm going down the wrong path and I need to pivot and course correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenny, how about you? Are there any signals that you have seen either in your team or in yourself
Yeah.
that really signal that burnout that might be approaching?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely talk about, I think what Jen said, I relate to a lot in terms of that hamster wheel mentality of when I was going through burnout, I would have so much to do that it was like my brain couldn't pick something to set, like it couldn't pick the next thing to do.
Decision paralysis?
Decision paralysis. So I wouldn't do anything, but then I would sit there for hours and think about all the things that I wasn't doing. And then when it got really bad, and I will say I had a pretty severe case of burnout. It's another reason that I left the previous role. I would sleep a lot. Like I would, middle of the workday, go get into bed and pull the covers over my head because I couldn't stomach the thought of like work being, facing everything that I was dealing with at work. And I don't have kids. I live by myself, and it took a lot for me to kind of recognize that in myself. But when I did realize what was going on, I reached out to a therapist. I worked with my doctor. I got on some, like in my case, I had to get on some medication to kind of regulate things. But a big part of it for me was recognizing that, and this goes back to our conversation about some of the boundary stuff, is like I did have to take that mental health evaluation of, wow, it's not just I have too much to do and I need to set boundaries. In my case, this is not the right place for me to be and I need to start job searching. So I think that there's a level of burnout where it's like exactly what Jen said, where, hey, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to set some boundaries. I'm going to talk to my manager and like reevaluate how I do this. And then there's another level where it is like, you have got to reach out and get some help on this one, and you have got to do a serious evaluation of your priorities at this point. And like I landed at Netskope and I'm really happy here, and like I'm not burnt out here, and it's night and day difference in terms of just the mental approach to work at this point.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's one of those things that we talk about, one of the things I don't think people talk about enough when it comes to burnout is how long it can take to recover from that. Even if you are, like Jenny, like you said, even if you are able to get right in with a therapist and you're able to get things sorted out, whether that's meds or whether that's, behavioral therapy, whatever, like it can still take weeks, months, if not years to recover, truly, especially from severe burnout. Severe burnout, the recovery period, generally speaking, is minimum a year. And that's huge. Like I granted, most of us I don't think are independently wealthy at this point. Most of us do have to, we can't just survive on water and sunshine. So it's a really difficult thing, especially when you think, at least from an American centric point of view, like we are so encouraged to not only identify yourself and keep at least a certain degree of your self-worth hanging on your professional like path and how your status, all that kind of stuff, but like it's so hardwired that honestly, even if you are loving your job, as I was when I experienced burnout, it's honestly almost more dangerous, right? Because like, Jen, like you said, you fall into that perspective of I don't know if I'm doing everything that I should be doing. You know what I mean? Like you start feeling worse about yourself. You want your performance at work to go better to kind of help that, as a objective, like, metric for yourself. And you don't realize you're digging your hole even deeper. It's tricky, right? It's very difficult to tell if you're going through this.
Yeah. And I just thought of something that I want to throw
Yeah.
in, if there's people who are experiencing this. One thing I heard, because I happen to work with a great group of women who a lot of us were going through the same thing around the same time. We all are still very much in touch. A lot of us have gotten out of that situation and we all still keep in touch with each other. But the thing I heard over and over again from the people who were experiencing that level of burnout was, well, why should I even bother like looking for something else or trying to make it better? Because like I'm worthless. I'm not doing a good job. I am the worst critic, and I am the worst things I've heard about myself on like a performance evaluation or, whatever it was. And the thing I had to keep reminding myself and helping them think through is nobody, the outside world, the people outside of this bubble do not understand. They don't, all they're going to see is your resume, and they're going to see you in an interview, and they're going to see the best parts of you. And because there are so many amazing parts of you, and you are not this bad thing that is happening to you and this thing that your head is doing to you. And there is another side. There is a bright side to this. There is another side of burnout, and you can get through it. It's just like you said, Meg, it's going to take a minute, and you need to be as kind to yourself as you possibly can once you recognize that that's what you're going through. You guys can probably tell I'm like super passionate about this because it was
Well,
one of those
no, I
things.
mean,
Yeah.
you're making a lot of sense, because I mean, like, burnout doesn't happen overnight. So how are you going to cure it overnight, right? Like, that's not a thing. And okay, as a recovering people pleaser and somebody who talks very, very meanly to themselves and is still trying to fix this, something my therapist told me that blew my mind was my internal monologue or my internal narrative a lot reverts to you're lazy. That's why these things are happening. That's why your tasks pile up, whatever, because Meg is lazy. My therapist told me if you were lazy when you're in decision paralysis and you just kind of can't do the thing, if you were lazy, you'd be having fun. You wouldn't be like scrolling your phone and still not satisfied. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting the dopamine hit. You're not actually doing anything. It's just that doom scrolling. If you're in that decision paralysis and having a great time, that's a little bit different. If you are not, if you're you're not lazy, okay? Listen to Meg in the times that I don't listen to myself, okay? You're not lazy. This is something that's serious and important that, we really should get this more drilled into our culture, right? And it starts with us. It starts with each of us. Zahira is also chiming in the chat saying, I always blamed myself. There's always something I could have done better. Zahira, remember that like giving your best, right? Like giving 100% is 100% of what you can handle to still be functional, right? Like I'm very bad at this of like give your 110%. And I always think like, okay, yeah, I'll just do that. Like to the point that I burn out, that's my 110%. It's like, no, 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 no. Rethink when you're talking about like, I could have done more, I could have done that better. Think about if doing that was actually going to support your mental health or not, because I think in a lot of times it's not going to. All right.
And if I can just add to
Please,
that real
please.
quick, the only other thing I would say is we're talking about how we've talked to ourselves negatively. I really think that has to be something that we improve and we change in ourselves. And I know it sounds really silly, but I tell my kids this all the time. If you think you're going to fail that test, you're already setting yourself up to fail that test. So you need to love yourself and nurture yourself. And that's a lot about how creating this balance is, because the company that you're working for would not have hired you if they didn't see something in you in order to execute on that role. So, and again, I've been there, I've blamed myself, but sometimes I have to look in the mirror and I have to remind myself, I'm here because I've done this, this, and that. And I look back at my accomplishments and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. Like, no, I'm not like, I try to reposition my brain to not enable me to think poorly of myself so that I love myself. I want to love myself. And I want to be like, you're awesome. You're great. You're kind. You're sweet. You can work on this. So let's do this to be a little bit more of a better person. But that doesn't make you a horrible person. So I am a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. So I just try to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
Yeah, I like that. If y'all are struggling with that negative self-talk, oh, please, Jenny, go right ahead.
It's just, I was gonna say, I'm totally on board with Jen. And one of the best books I ever read about this, it's called Just a Thought. It's by Dr. Amy Johnson. And she basically talks about how our brains get into pattern loops where they are basically like, your brain is trying to protect you. So it's saying this bad thing because it thinks that that's like helping you somehow. But in actuality, it's just a thought. It's just a pattern loop. And you can rewrite those patterns in your brain and get better. So yeah, she has a podcast. It's amazing. And it's just like, so now I will literally, when my brain sends one of those thoughts my way, Jen, it's almost like you're like, I'm like parenting it where I'm like, okay, I hear you. I totally understand that you think I'm being lazy and ridiculous, but that is just what we're thinking right now. And 5 minutes from now, we will not be thinking that. So it's like gentle parenting your brain sometimes.
I love that.
For me, especially when I'm having trouble with it myself, I think to myself, would you allow anyone to say this about one of your friends? Or would you say this to any of your friends? Because I say things to myself that, oh my word, would I never say that to anyone I care about. I don't even think I'd say it to people I don't like very much. So like, if you are struggling with this, pretend that you're saying those things either to little you, like 4, 5, 6-year-old you, because that might be very, very difficult, but if that doesn't work, pretend you're saying it to your friend. Pretend that you are trying to pump up your friend, and what would your friend say to you? That for me makes it a lot harder for me to be mean to myself, because I wouldn't do that to other people. I'll do it to me, but not to other people. All right, we've got 2 minutes left. I want to make sure that we have time here to say thank you. So Jenny and Jen, this has been wonderful. I loved getting to know each of you and learn from you today. Today was amazing. You shared a great amount of your time and your expertise with us. There's also a ton of work that goes in on the back end, which is very obvious, all of the prep work that y'all did today. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been really great, and I really hope we get to do this again soon.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah, this was an absolute pleasure. You guys.
Of course.
Amazing work.
Now, before we leave today, I also want to say a huge thank you to our audience as well. Obviously, I love that you come to these events because it means I have a job. But I love that you come to these events even more because you're doing something positive for yourself and your career. Okay, you just took 60 minutes to do something that was going to hopefully have a positive impact on your life. That is not easy in this day and age. So for everybody that joined us today, thank you so much for prioritizing yourself, for doing something for yourselves. If you are watching this in the future, thank you again for the rewatch. We absolutely encourage you to take all of this advice. And really, y'all, thank you so much for the people that joined us today. You brought some great questions. You really elevated the discussion. And I could not appreciate that more. So thank you all so very much. Now, in the last minute that we have, I want to remind y'all about Netskope's company page on powertofly.com. So I'm going to share my screen here again so you can take a look at that. But what I want you to check out here is this. Oh, wait, no, this one. So on Netflix or on Netskope's company page, there's going to be a lot of great info here. But one of the things I want to draw your attention to, especially if you are interested in working with Netskope, you might be applying to roles, all that kind of stuff. If you are interested, I really recommend that you check out their company page. The overview is a good tab, as well as about. That'll teach you kind of the basics about the company. Company insights is also important, but the couple things I want to highlight are your jobs tab. So obviously here, right, where is it? Right there. You can check out some of the jobs that Netskope has posted with powertofly.com. The other thing I want to highlight is this pink button that says follow. It's like right there. That is going to do some great things for you on Power to Fly. So especially if you're interested in Netskope, make sure that you tap that follow button. This is especially important if you are actively job seeking, but maybe don't see any roles like with Netskope just this second that are, I have to apply to that. It's going to do some great things, but basically what it does is it allows Power to Fly to tell Netskope that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. It also puts your profile head and shoulders above anybody else who is interested but has yet to apply to anything. And it also puts you on the follow network. So that is a really good short list that both Power to Fly internal people as well as the HR team from Netskope can access to check out and see if anybody that's already interested might fit the role that they're about to post. The other thing it does is it allows Power to Fly to take some of the weight off of you in your job search. We will let you know when Netskope or any other companies you follow post new roles, so that way you don't have to keep coming back and refreshing job boards. The other thing I really recommend is if you think you might be going into an interview with Netskope, check out especially the events tab. That'll have registration for future events they might be holding, but it'll also have links to past recordings. So great places to look for information about something you might want to ask about at an interview, something you want to comment on. It gives you a really good primer and kind of place to get started when you're interested in the companies. So I very, very much recommend you tap that follow button up there. All right, y'all, thank you for sticking around with me for the extra 2 minutes. Apologies, I want to respect everyone's calendar, but again, thank you all so much for joining us today. If this was your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. And whether this was your first event or your 500th, I cannot wait to see you again joining us for another event. Go out and have the day that you deserve, and we cannot wait to see you back here soon. Bye, y'all.